All right, well, I am in Cherokee country. Lucy and I were given an opportunity to stay in a cabin in North Georgia mountains for our 39th wedding anniversary. And so we're here, and it's fitting that what I want to talk to you today about has to do with inheritance. And this is going to be several in a series. So I'll try to keep these 5 or 10 minutes so that you can digest them. But this one has to do with redefining the spirit of Jezebel. Jezebel. All right, so she is the wicked queen of a weak king of Israel, Ahab. And in charismatic circles in the Christian church, the spirit of Jezebel is often used to name sort of a combination of a lustful, manipulative, power-hungry woman who can control a weak man, sort of like Jezebel was able to be the power behind the throne with King Ahab. Well, I'm going to redefine it. Not that it can't mean some of those things, and yes, there is a reference to tolerating Jezebel in one of the churches in the New Testament in Revelation. I get all that, but the spirit of Jezebel has to do also with stealing inheritance. Stealing inheritance. So in Second Kings, oh Lord, it might be First Kings 21. The whole chapter is about Naboth's vineyard. Naboth was a man who owned a beautiful vineyard right next to Jezreel, and King Ahab would look out of his palace and he saw that beautiful land and he wanted it. So he made an offer to Naboth to buy it or give him another vineyard somewhere else. And Naboth said, far be it from me to sell the inheritance of my family. This is God-given, and we're stewarding it from generation to generation. So when Jezebel saw that Ahab was sullen and he couldn't get what he wanted, well, she says, well, I'll get what you want. And so she devises a scheme where Naboth is brought into a public place and looks like maybe he's going to be honored, but instead they hire 2 liars, accusers, to say that he had cursed God and King Ahab and deserved to be killed. And so that's exactly what happened. That sounds really familiar, doesn't it, to what happened to Jesus when they had false accusers accuse him before the Sanhedrin for being treasonous to the God of Israel and to Caesar, and they killed him. Well, Naboth was killed, and his land was taken by Ahab. Well, Elijah was the prophet of the day, and so the word of the Lord came to Elijah to tell Ahab that on that very land that he had just stolen, dogs would lick his blood. And also for Jezebel, one day dogs would lick her blood. And those things actually did come to pass in the days of Jehu. But all to say, here I am. It's fitting, right, that I'm on Cherokee country here in Georgia, land that the Supreme Court recognized was rightfully theirs. But then something happened. Gold was discovered in them thar hills. So the Dahlonega Gold Rush in the 1820s came about. And do you know that my great-great-grandfather and his brother, they left their home in the mountains of North Carolina and came down to these North Georgia mountains, and they panned for gold. They were part of that gold rush before they went into the wild west of Alabama. Well, this is a familiar theme throughout human history. Whether it's De Soto and the conquistadors that came to this region in 1540 looking for gold, and they had what's called a papal bull. It was a decree from the Catholic Church called the Doctrine of Discovery, which gave the white conquistadors the right, in the eyes of the church, to enslave the subhuman natives of the Americas. And so that led to, you name it, genocide and the raping of women, the enslavement of native men. Yeah, so that was one wave of sort of the spirit of Jezebel. Now it's interesting to me that in the church, in the revival church, the charismatic church, you hear so much about the spirit of Jezebel when it comes to manipulation, but not about the stealing of land, the conniving to get something you want through a treaty that you plan to break before you've even, the ink is dry. And we know that, I'm just going to say it, the original sin, we think of racism and whatnot as the original sin of the United States of America. But it certainly was operating in a Jezebel-like way for centuries. Whether it was the conquistadors or the chattel slave, transatlantic slave trade, the colonialism and empire movements, where as soon as something valuable in Africa or anywhere, some resource, some beauty, let's face it, Europeans figured out ways to scheme and get it. Out of the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life, and because they had power and they could do it, we did it. I'm a Northern European descended guy, so the sins of my forefathers and foremothers are all over the land. This beautiful land I'm walking right now next to the Toccoa River near Blue Ridge, Georgia. And so the next time you hear, if you're a Christian, you're in the charismatic church, the spirit of Jezebel, I want you to process 1 Kings 21. I want you to think about how this nation in many ways is founded with the spirit of Jezebel, the spirit of and it justifies, it creates a blind spot that led to from the doctrine of discovery of the Spanish Catholics to the manifest destiny. When the whole idea of American exceptionalism partly comes from the Mayflower and the Pilgrims, the Puritans, who really sought to create a whole new millennial kingdom, a whole new world, New York, New England. We're going to get it right this time. But their inability to really see and fully embrace the Native Americans as human, first of all, the image of God, co-heirs of creation. Because of that failure, we're still paying the price of the inequities. So all to say, some of you may be flipping out that I'm saying all this, that I'm not patriotic or whatever, but there is true. I do love this country. But you know what? A lot that goes under the rubric of patriotism is racism. And we do have to look more carefully at the root system of these land grabs, these treaties. Most of Alabama was Creek Nation. 3/5 of Alabama And after the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, for war reparations, it was ceded to the United States. And I could go on and on. I'm going to cut this short. Redefining the spirit of Jezebel as stealing inheritances. And this is an abomination. This is an abomination. I am passionate about the exploitation of children. Jesus said, if you cause a little one to sin, it would be better for you to be cast into the sea with a millstone around your neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. Sexual exploitation is an abomination. Killing babies in the womb or outside the womb. The shedding of innocent blood is an abomination. But guess what else is an abomination to the Lord? And that's to move a boundary stone. To unjustly, to unrighteously take property that's not yours. To, like, you come upon a boundary, and because you like the other side, you devise a way to kill to get it, or to cheat to get it. Anything but pay the fair price, or simply respect and acknowledge the inheritance and rights of others. We got to do better, you guys. The next post I want to do is going to be about Esau and how he despised his inheritance. So we could either forfeit inheritances, and God hated Esau for that. Oh gosh, talk about Esau. I think he's not so bad, but anyway. Or we can steal inheritances with that lustful spirit of Jezebel.